All right, we are live. We are on Facebook. We're recording. We are here for a Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight. All right, we've got co-host Bob Gamble tonight. Hey, Bob, how's it going?
Very good, John. I appreciate you. How you doing?
Doing good. This is fun. We missed, I think, a week. Maybe we didn't miss
Maybe.
2 weeks.
Yeah, there was the World Championship
Yeah,
and
yeah,
illnesses for both of us, and it
yeah.
was just a wreck.
A lot of stuff happening, but
Yeah.
we're going to make up for it tonight because we've got John Tornarelli. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey guys, doing good, thanks. How about yourselves?
Oh, doing good. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to just tell a little story, then I'm going to punt over to Bob. We do a planning retreat for the club every year, and put a message out. And John messaged me and says, "Hey, I'd love to come by and check it out." And he comes over and joins the meeting, and we got talking, and I found out he had never done a triathlon at that point. And I'm like, "How cool is this?" That he wanted to dive in both feet in, to the club and really get engaged. And John has been such a pleasure to have part of the organizing different events, different clinics. And he's just been such a positive force. And along the way, he has started his triathlon career. So this is going to be a lot of fun hearing about how he why he started and how he got involved and what he's doing. So just a big thank you, John, for everything that you've done this season. It's so neat to see you take that risk of just jumping in and getting involved with a lot of people that you never knew and in a sport that was brand new. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that the spotlight's on me, but I think I have to say it, and I know I'm speaking for everybody in the club. Thank you and Bob for everything you've done. The time, the work, the caring. Yeah, that first meeting you talk about, I still have the notes here. And
I love it.
notes, the amount of work that you two put into this club is absolutely amazing, and everybody knows it and everybody appreciates it. And not just you, but the whole board of directors, Yoshi and Ted and Quinn and Matt and Colleen and Sandy and Hillary, and we go on and on, Brian and all the photographs he takes for everybody, and Rob Picardo.
Okay, John, this is about you. This isn't about
Yeah.
us.
Goes on and on. And the spouses, Sue and Christine and Laura, just how much everybody puts into this all around. So thank you both also.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And as Bob said, this is your spotlight. So we're going to keep the pressure on you. But thank you for those kind words. And everyone does contribute. It really, the club runs so well when everyone does their job, and it really does help out. So it's great to have you on board. So now that I've done that, and I'm gonna punt over to Bob for the official introduction.
All right, thank you, John, and thanks again, John T, for being on. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on and why I was excited was when I first met you, it was because you said, "Bob, what can I do to help?"
Mhm.
You just tell me what it is. You said, "I'll be there." And the way you said it, it was like, it was selfless. It was,
Yeah.
from the heart, and it was helpful, and it was humble. And I was just so impressed. And you helped set up the arches. You helped set, you said, "Whatever it is you need, I don't care what it is, just let me know, I'll be there and I'll help set up."
Yeah.
Now, that is so wonderful. And as John said, you hadn't done a triathlon yet, and you were jumping in to help with that. So that was super impressive. And that, I didn't know anything about you. And I'm going to use that to parlay into what it is that you do for a living. And for the folks who are listening, John's an officer in the Air Force, and not any officer. He's a senior officer, an 05 lieutenant colonel, and with a doctorate in physical therapy. On Nellis Air Force Base, and to be with his rank and his position and his stature in the Air Force, and to be as humble and helpful and selfless. And that's the reason we had to have you on. You're amazing. I mean, I could go on, so I'm gonna, stop talking here and get into your story. So, I mean, tell us, you're not 20 years old. You're still young, but you're not 20 years old. What made you get into triathlon? And when you did, tell us about that.
Sure. Well, thanks for the nice compliment too. But yeah, so I'm 51 now. I was 50 when we started this. I was sort of the guy who, between trying to balance work life and physical health, I kind of sacrificed my physical health over the years, and uh, I was getting a lot of injuries, and I had my third deployment was to Africa. I was there last April through October, and I got injured right before I went. Tore up some ligaments pretty bad in my ankle. It was a pretty bad injury. I have a long history of some back issues, and I was, struggling to come back from that and feeling kind of sorry for myself, maybe just frustrated, I think, overall. And toward the end of the tour, a guy came into my clinic, and he had a triathlon T-shirt on, and I was like, oh man, like I never met anybody that did triathlons. It sounds crazy. Tell me about it. So he's telling me all about this, and I'm thinking like, this is fantastic. Like I have to learn more about this. I think I want to do this. Almost that almost like a last chance or like a last calling to try to get back in shape and fix some things of how I've neglected myself over the years. So he gave me some encouragement, and I came back, and I came back in October. And I know that the club wasn't accepting new members until March. So I kind of got on the Facebook page and watched everything and kind of learned, and joined in March. And I think the first event was the polar swim, and that's when I met you, Bob. And wow, that was great. That was so much fun. It was cold, and everybody was freezing, and everybody was suffering.
It was shocking.
Yeah, it was incredible, and I loved it. And and then the second event was the Corn Creek ride, and I owned a BMX bike when I was 12, and I'd never owned a road bike, and so that was my first real ride. I literally, when you talk about rookies, I'm about as much of a rookie as you can get. And by the way, the irony isn't lost on me. This was great because last week you guys interviewed everybody that went to the world championship. You had like the best of the club, and then so I guess you had to balance it out by bringing in me. by the math, I am the slowest. I'm the worst triathlete in the club, and so we kind of went from the best to the worst just to bring the club back to level here. And I so I think that's great.
Okay,
But
hold on. I'm going to jump in on that because no, that is not the story. And what's really so cool, and you're going to talk a little bit about this, is your positive way that you take on triathlon has not gone unnoticed. It is really neat to see you participating in an event, no matter what place you're coming in. And that I think is a highlight of what our club is about, is everyone matters and everyone has that, unique story. So I'm going to call you out, man. You're just as important. So
well, yeah, even so, I got a couple DLs and and a couple just before. So
I love
but,
it.
it's about small gains, right? Small wins, and I'm looking towards. Actually, I'm probably looking for like 2 years from now before I'm middle of the pack, and that's fine. I'm having so much fun. This is great.
Thank you. And I would also like to call you out a little bit. There is no rank in the club. Everybody's is equal here.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you've probably got one of the best coming out of the water pictures of anybody in the club. So it's like,
Oh, with that picture from the cover?
Yeah, man. It's like I figured you would send that to Roca and use that. You get them to see if they wanted to use that for marketing.
Well, did you notice under my right arm I was clutching the swim buoy?
Right. Yeah. So
Actually, it did lead in because on the first event back in April, I was okay, I've been practicing everything. I know I'm not going to do great, but it's going to be okay. And when he blew the horn and we started swimming, I think my second breath, I just breathed in a mouthful of freezing cold water, and I started getting really nervous, and then I was just no experience with anything like this really, and I started panicking and holding on to my swim buoy, and then I remember Frederica, and I still call her my guardian angel. Every time I see her, I give her a hug because I was hanging on to her kayak 6 or 7 times just to get through that swim, and onto my swim buoy probably another 10 times. You know, dead last out of the water. And I just remember, like, I literally thought I was going to die. I felt like I was being buried alive. And I like, a lot of people have stories like that, panicking in the water. But I know when we rounded that last buoy and coming back in, it got to the point where I was just holding on to that buoy, and like I couldn't even hear anymore. Like, people were talking to me, and I was just floating around, just looking. And Rob Picardo came swimming up on his paddleboard, and it was perfect because he started yelling, like, "You listen to me. You know, you're going to put your face in the water. You know, count to 10, and let's go." And he kind of stuck by me a couple cycles until I kind of got things moving again. But you know, I finally came out of that water on that first swim, and I'll tell you what, I felt fantastic. Like, I was so proud, you know, for such a horrible performance, and it was incredible. And like, even if I did a 70.3, I don't know that I would probably feel as good, but that was such an accomplishment. And I got out of that water, and I just said, all right, like, put that behind you and let's get ready for the bike. And you know, that was it. But you know what my favorite part of a triathlon is? And this is kind of funny too, but, you know, because I've asked people and they're like, well, the camaraderie, or, you know, the self-challenge and this and that. My favorite part, and Bob, you did this to me twice on the first 2 events, is when you finally come across the finish line and you're hot. You're so hot and tired. And you came up, I wasn't even expecting this first time. You grabbed one of those white towels and dunked it in ice water, and had all these ice cubes stuck to it. You threw it on. I wasn't expecting it. And that cold felt so good. I was like, oh, this is my favorite part of triathlon. So yeah, it was great.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, John. I mean, you realize how that was an accomplishment. That was a huge accomplishment, because, you know, to have fear and then going through with it, that's huge. And you did that. A lot of people wouldn't have. So,
Yeah.
You got to pat yourself on the back and own that as a major accomplishment. It wasn't small.
No, but, and I really appreciate everybody, from all the lifeguards out there encouraging, and Frederica on the kayak, and Rob on the paddleboard. I wouldn't have got through it without all that, for sure.
And before we you know, get too much further into some more questions about your triathlons, when you joined, or you started triathlon at 50 years old, did you have any strength before this, or any base, you know, athletic base?
Like, literally nothing. I had nothing. Like, I couldn't swim. I just swimming pool swimming. So I was trying to learn to swim. Like I said, never owned a bike, and I really don't like to run too much. So I didn't have any. But, you know, you're talking about base, and one after one of the events, when we were done packing up, and some of us got together for breakfast, and Quinn was sitting right next to me. And one of the questions I like to ask, you know, some of the triathletes is like, what's your base? What's your strength? You know, how did you get into this? How did you start? And I love this conversation. It was so profound for me. And she thought for a minute. She kind of looked far away, and she said, I don't really have a base. I would say that my base is that I don't quit. You know, no matter what happens, I just don't quit. And, you know, if that means that, you know, I'm in the middle of the run and I'm just tired, I'll just, you know, if I have to walk a couple water stations, I'll do that. But I won't quit. And I thought, wow, you know, like, that really affected me. You know, that you don't have to be good at really anything. You just have to kind of keep getting after it. Just the way she put it was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you obviously you demonstrate that so well. And I love that story of your first event, is there was no quit in you on that day, and you're going to do what you needed to do to get through that swim. And it didn't matter what place you were in. And I think I really like this genuine sort of very fresh perspective that you're bringing here on that. And you clearly have that no quit mentality, and it really, but in a very healthy way too, because I know you talk about, you know, being dead last DL, but that doesn't matter to you, because you're showing that you're overcoming challenges, and you really seem to be enjoying that. So big shout out to you for how you're doing this.
But thanks. You know, when you start like as old as I am and as deconditioned as I am, I don't really have any expectations. That takes some pressure off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that first one because that first one, that is a cold swim. You really worked through it, and then talk us about the bike. Tell us about the bike. How did that go?
Oh, it was fine. It was, just a regular bike. I was kind of I was well, the very first time I rode a bike, Bob took me out and we were riding on the side of the road and my wheel kept going like off the road, So the fact that I went through the whole triathlon without like going off the road, I was happy about. But yeah, it was fine. I don't really have too many comments about the bike. I need to definitely get better on it and work on it. But I would say probably of the three, it's probably the easiest one for me. And yeah, just kind of got through the bike. No real report there.
One of the things I wanted to, before we got too far away from it, was you're finishing and you're saying it's DL. It's like everybody has their own challenge. Somebody's challenge may be to go from a 7-minute mile to a 6-minute mile, and that is, someone may have a challenge to go from a 14-minute mile to a 13. Okay.
Yep.
So it's like the challenges are the same. My challenge is huge, just because I'm an old fart and slow, and some people's challenges because they're going to run a 5-minute mile somewhere. So, but everybody has challenges, and they're they might be different, but they're as big to each person. So.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. That's what makes the sport great. We can keep challenging ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're no tough, Bob. I don't know. Your reputation is tough. John's reputation is fast. Yeah. When I talk, they're like, "Oh, those guys?" Yeah. So.
Okay. Now I got a question. Another question for you. One of the hardest things that most people experience, besides the swim, is running after the bike. You get off the bike and your legs aren't there. What was that like for you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I practiced that a couple times, so I would be familiar with that. But yeah, just that. Well, there's that. Well, so on that first triathlon, even though like we all talked about it, like stop your bike here at the cones before, so you have to walk it in. I still wasn't thinking. I wanted to like coast right into the racks. So somebody yelled and got me to stop, and that was good. But yeah, those jelly legs, and I just remember like clearly I was the last one off that bike, and but everyone there still clapping. Most people are done, drinking, Gatorade and water and stuff, and I'm just getting off the bike. But yeah, people clapping and encouraging, and that's. Everybody in this club has been so welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that Corn Creek ride,
Mm-hmm.
and like I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anything. I just was walking up to people, introducing myself. I was the guy, if you were there at that ride, I was the guy in the gray hooded sweatshirt. Like I didn't have stuff, I didn't know anything. So and everybody was just really nice, It was really a great time.
And that was the one where Paul McCutcheon was cooking breakfast, right?
Yeah, he was cooking breakfast. You had
Yeah, good one.
had a bunch of coffee. Yeah, it was. You had I think went to Starbucks and got a bunch of coffee, and yeah, it was a good time.
Oh, I love it. So then you did the run and you practiced it a couple times, you said, getting off the bike, so you knew what to expect. How about when you finished? I mean, what was that? I know you got the towel and that was great, but
Yeah,
what
that
was
was
it like to
great.
complete your first race?
And that was good. Well, the first thought as I was coming down is, I can't believe they kept this arch up for me. Like I figured you guys would have been taking everything down, and you're like, no, it's for everybody. But no, it really did feel good. It was a huge sense of accomplishment, but especially that swim, that just really stuck. That
Mhm.
was a
Oh,
real confidence booster for what it's worth. And yeah, I was hooked. Absolutely.
And there's a reason for that, like the bigger the challenge, the bigger the sense of accomplishment. Yeah, I mean, and that was huge for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I just got to figure out my swim now. I'm really struggling with that. But
Mhm.
I like my season is over right now, just because even in a wetsuit, I don't think I could swim 500 yards, without a swim buoy. So I'm just going to keep working on it all winter. And had Coach Melody Cronenberg. I'd say hi, Melody, and Rob Picardo have worked with me a little bit, and even toward the end, they said, John, your form isn't that bad. So I think it's just the engine, you know, and I got working on that.
No.
But
Well, that's great. And that was going to be my next question is what was the hardest part? So clearly getting the swim going, and again, taking up swimming as an adult, that's harder. But I love how you're seeking out help in that area to improve. So I'll ask a different question. I'll say, what has been the funnest part of taking up triathlon so far?
so I think part of the funnest part is like the confidence I'm getting. It feels good to just be physical again, and so you know, using the sport to as a foundation to build a stronger life. And so I really appreciate that. But the funnest part, I think, has been, yeah, just getting into those awkward situations, that nervous feeling at the start line, and you know, in the water, and you know, and then just going, and just that nervousness and working through it has been great. Plus, getting to meet everybody. Oh my gosh, everyone's so nice. So it's just the whole experience is good.
I have another question for you then. You are learning really fast and you're learning a lot. What are you using? What you know, how are you getting your knowledge? And I know Mel's helping you and she's, you know, great coach.
Yeah,
And,
her and Rob. Yeah. So that was for swimming. And then for the others, I'm reading so many books. Just any triathlon book I can get at the library, reading it and just watching a lot of YouTube videos and just trying stuff. But mostly, I'd say probably 80% of what I'm doing is in the pool. You know, 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days a week, from 30 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes, just depending on how much time I have. And it's funny how you put in so much work for something and see the little return. You know, but eventually, and I know you and I talked about this, Bob. This switch will flip, and
you have a step increase. Yes,
yeah,
you will.
a big step increase.
Sometimes it happens.
So yeah, videos and you know, I've really done well with the zone 2 training, so that I don't fatigue, and I haven't been injured at all since I've been doing the zone 2 training, and so you know, that's been really good for me. And I would encourage like all rookies, like next year, if they watch this or whatever, to really embrace the zone 2 to build your stamina so that you don't get hurt.
And you are talking John's language there. I see he's smiling a little bit, as far as John is really great on consistency and, you know, and over intensity and like, you know, just what you're talking about. Right, John?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, and I love that, because you actually stole another question of mine. I was going to ask you, if you were going to talk with someone starting out with triathlon, what advice would you give them? And that is great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And just get out there and meet people, you know, and just introduce yourself, because everybody in the club has been really welcoming and so helpful.
So I'm curious, as you've done all this reading and watching of YouTube, there's a lot of information out there. Is there any particular point that you picked up that, looking back even on your first year, you're like, wow, I'm glad I knew that going into it?
That's a good question. Is there like a particular tip and trick? Is that kind of what you're at?
Yeah.
Well, gosh, I have to think about
it. Sounds like you have already addressed part of that, I think, with your zone 2. That's huge.
Yeah, that's been really big, and I think just the mindset of not giving up and just having a good mindset. You know, work through you got a problem, work through it. No triathlon, no event's going to be perfect, whether it's a flat tire or, you know, a side cramp or something like that. Just fix your problems and keep moving forward.
And that's huge. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, and to realize that as early in your triathlon career as you are is huge, because it's swim, bike, run, solve problems, right?
Yeah, good.
All right, so I want to look forward now. So what does your 2024 look like?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, well, since my season's over, I'm kind of excited. There's an Air Force half marathon at the end of this month,
Oh,
so I'm
nice.
training for that. So, I right now I'm just looking forward to getting a lot of training in and fixing my swim.
Hmm.
And the bike, I think I can get through that. But getting my run times down while I can stay in zone two is the second one. But yeah, so for next season, like my wild and crazy goal would be 70.3. I don't know. I don't really think I could do that next year, but maybe the year after, that would still be my crazy goal.
Yeah.
So I think next year, if I could, do the club events again and maybe knock out a couple Olympics
Yeah.
to get some confidence,
Hmm.
but I'm looking 2 years down the road, I think, before I'm really, um, a capable triathlete, but I am really looking forward to challenging myself on a 70.3 sometime.
Well, I love that. I love that you took the challenge of even starting off with the club events and using that as sort of a starting place to do another big challenge in like a 70.3. And I have no doubt that you'll be able to do it. And
Right.
because you're taking a really nice, mature, consistent approach in terms of training. And I really love the idea of, just doing that zone two, which is sort of an easy zone because it's just so important to be training consistently as opposed to even jumping into these faster speeds or what have you. So I have
Sure.
no doubt that you'll knock down a 70.3. Let me just ask you, is there any like destination type of race that you have on the map?
I don't know enough about the sport or about the destinations. Just from reading, St. George sounds like it's kind of a tough one.
Hmm.
There's one that was just in Oregon that's a downriver swim, so that may be a good one to start. Or I think Quinn was saying there's one in Sacramento that's a downriver swim to start as well.
Hmm.
Maybe
That's
confidence
a
boost.
full though. The one in that's a full Ironman.
Oh, never mind. Yeah.
But you're right though. The Oregon that would be fun, and
Yeah.
you would do well. You're a good cyclist.
Yeah, well, I got a long way to go. I'm still,
Once
still running flats. I still got to get shoes and pedals. I got to learn about this stuff. So, but yeah, I'll get there eventually.
Well,
and
oh, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
one of the things that gives me confidence that you're going to get there is you've got a really interesting blend and a unique blend of enthusiasm on one hand and patience and maturity on the other hand. You put those two together, and you're going
Oh,
far.
Hmm.
we'll see. I don't think I'll ever be fast or anything, but just to finish finish the event before you
Yeah.
shut the light, is the win as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and I love it, and I love the approach of equipment wise, and you mentioned using flat bottom pedals, which is fine, and I think that's great for people to hear, is that you don't always need to have top end gear when you're doing these events because you gotta build into it, and it makes no sense to go off and spend 10, $15,000 on a bike, which a lot of people do. Getting something that's very capable and it is a great way to start. It's a good entry into the sport, and then enjoy the sport for what it is.
Absolutely. I don't even have enough experience to have an opinion yet. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you're smart in knowing that. You know, so you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
great.
John, I love this. I love your approach. I love that you started triathlon in the 50s. I think that's another message for people to hear is that you're never too young. Everyone can train and get a training response no matter when you start. And so I think that that's another great message. And I love just this perspective of taking on the sport for a challenge and enjoying the journey of training and then also doing the event, no matter where you place at all. And I know when you do an event, I'm seeing you and you're having a great smile when you're coming in. So it's really such a great, refreshing attitude.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, everybody, even, I remember one time coming out of the water, I think it was on the third event, and Matt and Barrett and Yoshi were just kind of standing there with their arms crossed, just nodding their heads like you look like you're doing better. You know,
Yeah.
that little encouragement coming out of the water gives you a lot of energy, and it gets you ready for that next section, the next for the bike.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for jumping on this podcast to talk about you. And I know you're a very humble guy, and so it's really nice that you joined the spotlight and given everyone a little bit more sense of what you've done in triathlon. So thank you. And again, a big, huge thank you for volunteering throughout the season and taking that risk of getting involved. So I love it.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's been a great way to get to know the sport and get to know all of you. And I'd encourage everybody in the club to volunteer because it is a lot of fun and you learn a lot behind the scenes.
And I just want to jump on what John said and thank you for all the help that you give on set up and tear down and run, with the events and everything.
Well, yeah.
Very, valuable member of the club. I appreciate you.
That means a lot.
And I'll throw one more out then. And one more, big kudos to you is that you're getting to the race like 2 hours before the start because you're there setting up. And that is impressive that you get there. I think when was the last time we were there? We were at 4 or 3:30, whatever it was. Yeah.
And you still raced.
And you still raced. I loved it.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. All right, John. Hey, thanks so much. Have a great evening. Okay.
Guys, thank you.
Later.
Fun.